Well, that was service. There we go. Good morning. Welcome to today's hybrid service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Arlington. I was kidding. It's not over yet. There's more. So don't leave. My name is Amy Kakuza, and I'm honored to serve as a member of your Board of Trustees. UUCA is a place where we encourage one another to come for community, find inspiration, and live with purpose together. We strive to be, and are committed to becoming, a nurturing faith home for all. Individually, we're a people of many beliefs, origins, stories, and identities. No matter your racial or gender identity, your sexual orientation, your heritage, your means or abilities, you have a place here in this community. It's wonderful to spend this time with you this morning, whether you're here in our beautiful sanctuary or watching from somewhere out there online. But it feels particularly special to welcome everyone here in the sanctuary this morning, knowing that this building is now really, truly ours. Yeah. For anyone who didn't see in Connections, this past Monday, we made our final mortgage payment to the bank. So there is no more bank involvement. Huzzah! So we should all be really, really proud of the generosity and the hard work and the optimism that made this capital campaign such a success. For everyone who's here in person, we invite you to stick around after the service. We're going to have actual coffee, like actual that you can drink together in communion. It's really exciting. If you're joining from elsewhere, I hope you have actual coffee or tea too, but please join us for a virtual coffee hour after the service, and enjoy. Thank you.
Amy, thank you so much for that welcome. For those of us here who are planning to drink actual coffee together, or like me, stand around while other people drink actual coffee together, that will happen in the center, where we'll follow what were until recently airplane rules. You take your mask off to drink or eat. After the 9:15, there was also a little treat in there, so that might be fun to check out. While we're here in this space, you'll keep your masks on. We take them off here on the chancel. And just a reminder as well, as you've seen at the edge of your pew or as you came in, we have a QR code today. For Earth Day in particular, we're trying out an online order of service, so you can pick that up on your phone. We do have a few printed copies if you prefer, but give it a try, see what you think. Bonus is you can be on your phone during the service and you've got a great excuse. So whatever works, we're glad to have you with us today. Our call to worship this morning is adapted from words by my colleague Gretchen Haley. And this call to worship has a response part, which I hope that you will help me with. All you need to do is say rise when I hold my hands up. So I'll go like this and you'll say rise. Okay. Gretchen Haley's words. Because the tides are rising, so must we rise. To this moment, rise. To this day, rise. To this life, this place in the web that is yours and ours, rise. Because the earth remains our only home, and we, fellow travelers, its only hope for healing, wholeness, salvation, rise. Before the mystery, before the Big Bang that started it all, that this infinite universe still takes notice of us, still feels the in and out of our breath, still holds us, connects us. rise. Or surrender with gratitude for this beauty, this chance to be a part of it all, to give back, to weave life, past, present, future, everywhere, always as one. Rise. Come, let us worship together. These last few weeks and months, we have been lighting a candle of compassion before lighting our own chalice. This week, I hold in particular those in Brooklyn last week and here in DC this week who were victims of gun violence in their neighborhood, and those who are victims of gun violence in their neighborhoods and their homes and their countries all the time, sometimes getting less press, but no less trauma. Thank you, Diane.
And as we light our chalice, I want to introduce myself. I am Diane Julius. I am UUCA's commissioned lay minister. I'll start with the first sentence of our chalice writing and ask you to join me with the words that you have in front of you. We gather together as a community of memory and hope to celebrate life and its infinite possibilities for reward. We light this chalice as a symbol of the light within every human heart. May our individual sparks meet and merge, bringing both light and warmth to the world.
As we hear this drumbeat of the heart, of the earth, I need some help because I've got lots of instruments up here. So please, adults, children, come on up and take an instrument. We have instruments that you can sit with the drums. We also have drums here, and we have lots of shakers. So pick something out that you really like or that you're attracted to, and let's feel that heartbeat together. There's some over there. Yeah, great. I'm going to be singing a song that I'm not sure of the origin, but I'm going to just sing it so you can hear it first. All across the earth, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold. Come on in, there's more over there, and there's more on this side. This is fantastic. All right, try out your instrument. Would you like some egg shakers over there, honey? Come on over, I'll show you. Can we grab a couple of egg shakers here for these wonderful players? That's it. Hold it just like that. Here's more here in case we get more. Don't put all. Awesome. This is great. Okay, let's everybody hear their instruments all together. Ready? Let's try it out. Fantastic. When I do this, that means stop. All right. So if you have a drum, let's play that first and let's listen to just the drums. Ready? Just the drums. Fantastic. That's you. That's right. It's a drum. Fantastic. All right. Let's hear everything else now. These two shakers. Ready? Shakers. Let's hear you. Woo! That sounds wonderful. Okay. So drummers are first for our first verse. Shakers are second for our second verse, and then we'll play all together. Ready? Okay. Let me give you a starting drum, and then we'll start with the rhythm. Here we go. Let's hear your drums. All across the earth, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold. Okay, shakers, it's your turn. All across the sky, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold. sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold. Now everybody all together, here we go. Deep within my heart, the sacred voice is calling me. Behold, behold. The sacred voice is calling me. Behold, 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 behold. Okay, let's do a rumble. Ready? Rumble. Woo! Fantastic! Beautiful. Hey, if you'd like to put your instruments back, and I think that,
Yeah,
and I think that Reverend Amanda has a story for
that's
the children.
right. I do. Sophia, thank you so much. If you would like to, you are welcome to come and sit on the chancel with me, and we are going to read a story together before classes. Oh, Jaja, I'm not sure we're going to act this one out, but I will make sure that the next one I do, we have an act out. Is that okay? Okay, all right, we've got it. This story is picked out today because today and this weekend is a celebration of something. Does anybody know what? Maybe something you've talked about in school. Anyone? Yes.
Was it yesterday?
Yeah, what was it yesterday? Earth Day, you've got it. Was that what you were going to say too? Well, then you had it too.
Friday was Earth Day.
Oh, do you think it was Friday? Maybe it was Earth Day observed on Friday. Okay, it was Friday. Well, so good to know. You all are always so on top of it. I appreciate it. Well, sometime in the last few days was Earth Day. Do we agree on that? Yes. Good. We think it's Friday. Thank you. It was Friday. And so for Earth Day, I'd like to share a story about someone that I think is very inspiring. Do you know this person already?
Yeah.
How many of you have heard of Wangari? Wangari Maathai. Some of you? Any of you? Oh, just a couple. Wangari Maathai is a Nobel Peace Prize winner. She was the first person to win the Nobel Peace Prize for environmentalism, for making the earth better with plants. Yes?
I've read that book.
You have read this exact book? That's amazing. Well, there are two books here about Wangari Maathai, and I grabbed this one because I wanted to show you where she is from. She is from a country called Kenya, which is on the east coast of Africa. Here's where it is. It's surrounded in red, so right over here. So we all have a sense of where it is. It looks kind of small on this map, but it's not a small country. It's a big country. Well, there are similar shapes, but this is Africa, the continent of Africa. Here it is. Oh, yeah, no. The continents all do look similar, and sometime we can talk about plate tectonics, but not today. Today, I would like to tell you the story of Wangari Maathai. So I'm going to try to show you some of the pictures here, if you'd like to see. That's Wangari's mother. Wangari lives under an umbrella of green trees in the shadow of Mount Kenya in Africa. She watches the birds in the forests where she and her mother go to gather firewood for cooking. There they are. And she helps harvest the sweet potatoes, sugarcane, and maize from the rich soil. Wangari shines in school, and when she grows tall, like the trees in the forest, she wins a scholarship to study in America. So she's taking a boat over. I don't know if she really took a boat. Maybe she took a plane, but the boat looks better in the book, so, 6 years later, her studies over, Wangari returns to her Kenya home and sees a change. What has happened, she wonders. Where are the trees? Wangari sees women bent from hauling firewood miles and miles from home. She sees barren land where no crops grow. And where are the birds? Have you ever seen trees where there were many trees and then those trees were cut down maybe to build something else? Have you seen that in your neighborhoods? Yeah?
They ripped up the tables.
They ripped up the trees. Yeah, that's happened to you.
At school, one of the branches of one of the biggest trees by the bat playground fell down.
Oh,
on the
yeah.
bench.
Oh dear.
It was the one that me and my friends always sat at, and then they
Oh.
just cut up the rest of the tree.
The whole rest of the tree, yeah. Yeah. Well, thousands of trees had been cut down to make room for buildings. but no one planted new trees to take their place. Will all of Kenya become a desert? Wangari wonders as her tears fall. Wangari thinks about the barren land. I can begin to replace some of the lost trees here in my own backyard, one tree at a time. She starts by planting 9 seedlings. A seedling is like a baby tree. Watching the seedlings take root gives Wangari the idea to plant more, to start a farm for baby trees, there we go, a nursery. In an open space, she plants row after row of the tiny trees. Next, Wangari convinces the village women that planting trees is a good thing. She gives each one a seedling. Our lives will be better when we have trees again, you'll see. We are planting the seeds of hope. The women spread out over the village, planting tiny trees in long rows, like a green belt stretching over the land. A line of trees, yeah. Have you ever planted the whole country, maybe?
Maybe all the states in the country.
That could be. I think that that's possible. We could do that. The government men laugh. Women can't do this, they say. It takes trained foresters to plant trees. The women ignore the laughter and keep planting. Wangari pays them a small amount for each seedling still living after 3 months. Word travels like wind rustling through leaves about the green returning to Wangari's village. Soon, other women in other villages and towns and cities in Kenya, all around the country, you were right, are planting long rows of seedlings too.
Discovering things so fast.
Yes, it did go so fast, but the cutting continues. Wangari stands tall as an oak to protect the old trees still remaining. Maybe we could do that. How do you sit tall as an oak to protect the trees? We need a park more than we need an office tower. The government men disagree. Wangari blocks their way, so they hit her with clubs. They call her a troublemaker and put her in jail. And still, she stands tall. Right is right, even if you're alone.
Red stuff.
I think that's supposed to be a little bit of blood. She was okay, but she got a little hurt, and then they put her in jail.
I see blood.
Yeah. But Wangari is not alone. Talk of the trees spreads over all of Africa like ripples in Lake Victoria. More women hear the talk and plant even more seedlings in longer and longer rows. They want even more trees. Yeah, the seedlings take root and grow tall until there are over, you ready? 30 million trees where there were none. 30 million. The umbrella of green in Kenya returns. Women walk tall, their backs straight, for now they can gather firewood closer to home. The land is no longer barren. Sweet potatoes, sugarcane, and maize grow again in the rich red earth. Yeah, sugarcane's pretty delicious.
Still alive today?
She is not alive today, no, but she was alive not so long ago. She lived until she was quite old, and then we have this whole story to remember her. The whole world hears of Wangari's trees and of her army of women who planted them. And if you were to climb to the very top of Mount Kenya today, you would see the millions of trees growing below you and the green Wangari brought back to Africa. So, Wangari reminds me that we can start with just a seedling and really make eventually, especially if we work with other people, a huge difference in our communities, just the way she did.
Maybe in the future we could save the earth from litter.
I think that's a fantastic idea. Maybe in the future we could save the earth from litter.
You could buy them.
Yes.
Yeah, and you can discover people.
You could discover people. There's a lot to discover, actually, as it turns out. And you are off to your classes where you can, yes, would you like to add one more thing?
Maybe in the future
Yeah.
they like producing electricity from trees?
Maybe in the future they could build special trees with solar panels in them so that it provides power to nature and electricity as well. Fantastic idea. Okay, off we go to classes, though I'm not sure why, because you obviously have already answered the environmental problems of our time. Thank you.
Please join me in the children's blessing song. Peace to you on your way. May you grow in love each day. Meeting new friends and opening your mind to the wonders of the world you will find. To the wonders of the world you will find.
Oh, it's me. I think I was still contemplating solar panels on trees. I love it. I think sometimes, friends, that there are many ways to pray. Reading with children just might be one of them. Digging with our hands in the earth might be another. And sitting in silence is surely one. I invite you to sit in some silence with me today. Close your eyes if you would like, or soften your gaze. Take a breath and listen. Bring into the silence all that your heart holds. Worry, grief, laughter, wonder. Bring it as an offering to the silence we create together. Sound of the cars outside, sometimes the chirps of birds or the shift and rustle of our bodies in space remind us that we are not alone, even in our silence. May we know in the times when we are busy and in the times when we are still, that the spirit of life and love is with us always. May it be so.
Join me in the singing of Spirit of Life.
So
Our reading this morning is from Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. The subtitle of this book is Indigenous Wisdom, Scientific Knowledge, and the Teachings of Plants. The seventh fire prophecy presents a second vision for the time that is upon us. It tells us that all the people of the earth will see that the path ahead is divided. They must make a choice in their path to the future. One of the roads is soft and green with new grass. You could walk barefoot there. The other path is scorched black, hard. The cinders would cut your feet. If the people choose the green path, then life will be sustained. But if they choose the cinder path, the damage they have wrought upon the earth will turn against them and bring suffering and death to earth's people. We do indeed stand at a crossroads. Scientific evidence tells us we are close to the tipping point of climate change, the end of fossil fuels, the beginning of resource depletion. Ecologists estimate that we would need 7 planets to sustain the lifeways we have created. And yet, those lifeways, lacking balance, lacking justice and peace, have not brought us contentment. They have brought us the loss of our relatives at an accelerating pace and in a great wave of extinction. Whether or not we want to admit it, we have a choice ahead, a crossroads.
My Facebook feed for the last few days, I guess starting on Friday, which I was informed was really Earth Day, and over yesterday and today too, has been full of pictures of flowers and trees and the earth from space and proclamations of Happy Earth Day. At a neighborhood gathering this weekend, all of us together outside near a neighbor's wall where we gather for snacks and drinks sometimes. I was with someone who recalled being in 7th grade on the very first Earth Day, April 22nd, 1970. Some of you perhaps remember that day as well. She was recalling the celebration, the big deal, the excitement around her in school and in the larger community at that moment, this first Earth Day, celebrated and happy. As we talked about those memories, my own children sitting on the grass near me playing with the neighborhood toddlers, the azaleas starting to bloom house by house, depending on who got the sun first, the spring evening getting cooler. I wondered whether Earth Day felt quite so celebratory this year. I remember celebratory Earth Days too, not as early as my neighbor, but some years back. I remember when recycling as we know it today really started as a movement in schools and businesses and homes, when we were excited to be part of the cycle of materials. I remember the first time I heard about LED lights, the first electric cars. The first person I knew to get solar panels, it was my father-in-law, actually, a very early adopter in Columbia, Maryland. This year, Earth Day doesn't feel quite so celebratory to me. The truth is, as Kimmerer says in the reading that Diane shared with us this morning, we are close to a tipping point, or perhaps even past some of those points. You have surely read the articles, or maybe like me, you have seen the headlines and then studiously tried to avoid reading the articles. La 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 la. It's too bad, too big. Feels fine with my head here in the sand. Some years ago, I read the book Earth, written by Bill McKibben. The title is spelled Earth with two A's. It's E-A-A-R-T-H, like Earth. And McKibben spells it that way to signify that our planet has already changed beyond repair. That essentially we are inhabiting an Earth that is not the same as the one that generations before us inhabited. And that it's important to take stock of that, to have that reality in our minds. The book invited us to think about what came now or came next, what kind of communities we could create, what would be needed from us in this new world that we had already begun. And it awakened me to some practical ideas, to the concept of self-sustaining communities, of hyper-local ecological connection, farm to table in a very real lived way, of living off the grid or maybe creating a new grid with the people closest to us. But of course, for people like me, and maybe for some of you, that future reality of needing to create hyper-local communities to sustain life isn't coming that soon. For those of us who live with relative privilege, here in the part of the world where increasing heat means more AC instead of widespread famine, where rising sea levels means a changed coast instead of the loss of our country, it's easy to imagine these things as existing in some far-off future we don't really need to worry about. Until, I think, we get real with ourselves. Look around, realize that in part, we are already there. Perhaps look forward 10, 20, 50 years. Face the reality that we will be flooded in all likelihood with climate refugees. For me, at least, the questions then begin to move from the practical to the existential. What is life? What is the world when it has changed so completely? What does it mean to live in a world where we may have already lost its future, or at least a future that significantly resembles its present? Now, I put in the caveat that I am by no means, while focusing on the existential questions, saying that we ought to stop working against that soon to come or already past tipping point. There are still real and significant changes that can and must be made, mostly through national and international policies that change the way corporations act. And of course, personal action is important too, in part because that personal action spurs us toward thinking about the action that can and must be taken collectively. I'm not asking for us to stop working toward that reversal. I believe it is possible. And as a justice seeker, I'm interested in what policies to support and what candidates to back and what companies to boycott. As a minister, though, I'm interested today, at least, in how we live with what is, how we keep going, keep loving in the midst of crisis. Perhaps this might be relevant, actually, to more than just our environmental crisis. perhaps it could be applied to the ever disappointing, ever heartbreaking reality of violence in our world, in our country, in our neighborhood. Perhaps it could even be applied to those most personal times in our lives when we are asked to keep going, to keep living, or even keep loving, despite our despair and hopelessness. Perhaps. But for now, I want to think together about what it means on a global level, on an ecological level, what it can mean to keep living and perhaps to keep loving when the earth has already changed. So I turned to some experts, to people who do read the articles after the headlines and haven't buried their heads in the sand at all. Diane shared this passage today from Braiding Sweetgrass. I have been reading the book Braiding Sweetgrass, or rather listening to it as an audiobook, for quite some time. Those of you who are alert worship attenders may recall that I used a passage from it back in December for a sermon on giving and generosity. It's a long book, okay? And of course, because I listen to it by audio, I get it in little pieces. I do recognize the irony of listening to Braiding Sweetgrass on my commute in my car. Life is complicated, and we are caught in the system. What I have loved, though, about this book is the way Kimmerer is able to keep a clear-eyed view of the reality of the world, the reality of already present environmental degradation, and still to wrap the whole thing in love. Love of the earth, love of individual flowers and plots of land, love of the world as a whole, the macrocosm of nature. Kimmerer is someone who knows nature, both as a botanist and a scientist, and also with a lived indigenous lens, and who, in knowing it, loves it with her whole self. She has good company. As I was preparing this sermon, I reached out to some members of UUCA, of this community, who are part of the Climate Crisis Action Collective, one of the social justice groups here at UUCA, as well as to members of DIG, or Doing It Green, which works on our property here. In fact, they had one of their work days just yesterday, a great way to get your hands in the dirt with other UUCA members. Perfect for the whole family. And so if you are admiring the plants and flowers and native plants around, I encourage you to thank them and join them next time. I reached out to these members and asked them why they do the work they do in environmentalism or on our own campus, and how they stick with it when the problem seems so overwhelming. Shirley Gay wrote back and said, "Each time I get discouraged, a walk in the woods or just getting outside helps. Even looking out a window helps." Sonia Erbaum wrote what turned out to be a theological reflection. What is God, really, if not Mother Earth, nature, the sun, air, water that sustains life? The earth, wrote Sonia, does not belong to us to exploit as we wish. We are just a part of this earth, one among many. I think most of what is wrong with today's society stems from human beings' basic disconnection from nature. Nothing brings me greater peace than touching and smelling the earth, watching the plants and animals interact, listening to the sound of the waves, the wind rustle in the trees, and the birds sing. This idea of Shirley's and Sonia's about getting connected to nature, finding the way to move forward there among the plants, That's a key part of Kimmerer's work in braiding sweetgrass. Kimmerer writes about what it means to become native to the land, or at least to become what she calls a good immigrant, to really understand the particular land that we inhabit, even as it is changing. I think one of the reasons I loved this book so much is that much of it is set in upstate New York in the Hudson Valley, not far from where I grew up. And so I can imagine the flowers as Kimmerer describes them. I know what Ghost Pipe looks like when you happen upon it suddenly in the forest undergrowth. I can feel the cool air at the end of a summer day. Kimmerer wants all of us to be able to know the land we live on, to love it, both because that helps us to save it and simply because it helps us to be fully ourselves, connected with what Kimmerer might call our elder relatives, the trees and the other plants that surround us. Joanna Macy brings a similar wisdom about loving and knowing, truly knowing the earth that we inhabit. Macy is a Buddhist activist and a scholar, and she calls the work that she does work that reconnects, WTR, work that reconnects, seeking to establish kinship with the earth, and out of that kinship to work for change. Just like Sonia and like Kimmerer, she believes that it is our disconnection from nature that keeps us from moving forward in loving the earth and saving it, and from being whole ourselves. Macy puts it this way: compassion literally means to feel with, to suffer with. Come is the with, and passion is the feeling, right? Everyone, writes Macy, is capable of compassion, and yet everyone tends to avoid it because it's uncomfortable. And the avoidance produces psychic numbing, resistance to experiencing our pain for the world and other beings. For Macy, perhaps in part because of her Buddhist roots and Buddhist orientation, and that emphasis on the nature of suffering as a deep part of human existence, Macy asks us not to move away from the pain, to root ourselves instead in the despair, to really sit with it as a beginning, or perhaps even as a regular practice, an understanding of what it is to live on this earth today. Cliff Gay wrote to me as well, and I don't know if he has been reading Macy or if he simply got there on his own. He wrote, "For me, the situation is dire, existential. At the current rate of increasing emissions, we will break the system that has kept the earth habitable. The mass extinction will include Homo sapiens. So we keep trying to make a difference, driven by our most primitive instincts to preserve our children, family, and tribe. And as Unitarian Universalists, we know that our tribe is all life." That idea of being present to the situation's direness, to the despair, Macy thinks that it makes us ultimately more human. The sorrow, grief, and rage you feel, she writes, is a measure of your humanity and your evolutionary maturity. As your heart breaks open, there will be room for the world to heal. What I hear in Macy's and Kimmerer's words is an invitation to be awake, awake to the ecological crisis that surrounds us. If you were here 2 weeks ago, you might remember the Buddhist story of a tiger chasing a man through the woods as he climbs up a cliff. Surely this crisis is a tiger at our feet. And our task, perhaps, is to allow that to break our hearts open. But instead of finding despair there, to find also more love. Cliff puts it this way: you persist because you care and you react to what is happening that is not good for what you value. Rather than worry about what I cannot do and how large the problem remains, something in my nature allows me to persist doing what I can when I can. Sonia says, the most important thing we can do is make sure the next generations have a chance to experience the natural world. For I believe that anyone who has been taught to respect nature and opens their hearts to love the earth that sustains us will work to protect it as best they can. Sonia, I think, speaks to the idea of loving the earth, truly loving it, this earth, this land that we inhabit. But there's something perhaps even more in Kimmerer's work that calls to me. I don't know if you've ever listened to an audiobook. I haven't a lot. I just started with this one and now have moved on to others. You know, when you listen to a book instead of read it, you don't have the visual cues. So I can't tell you where I heard this in a chapter or what page it was on. Instead, the stories of the book that Kimmerer weaves together feel as though she told them to me on my back porch, or with a mug of tea at the kitchen table, or maybe around a campfire outside. I remember, though, a theme through those stories that called again and again. Over and over, Kimmerer would ask her students, all of whom were in a graduate program for botany or biology, all of whom were there in part because they loved the earth and they wanted to try to save it. She would ask them about how their relationship with the earth was reciprocal. They knew that humans could hurt the earth or heal the earth, but how did the earth feel about humans? How did the earth feel about them? It was this piece in Braiding Sweetgrass that particularly caught my imagination. The idea that we are not just acting on the earth, but that on a deep level, we are in relationship with the earth, with the plants, with our elder relatives. Kimmerer's spiritual understanding as a member of the Potawatomi tribe is not my own, but there's enough resonance with the web of existence of which we are all a part, enough resonance with my own understanding of the way the world is connected, that I know what she means when she talks about a kinship with all that is. Relatives. Kimmerer writes in Braiding Sweetgrass, knowing that you love the earth changes you, activates you to defend and protect and celebrate. But when you feel that the earth loves you in return, that feeling transforms the relationship from a one-way street into a sacred bond. All through the Braiding Sweetgrass book, and perhaps all through our own experiences, are examples of the earth loving us in return. The wild strawberries, the sugar from the maple tree. When we live in good and right relationship with the earth, the gifts returned to us are truly gifts we give to our family, to our relatives. Sometimes I find that the celebrations or observances of Earth Day trend a little too much toward the if only everyone recycled, we'd be just fine for my taste. We need policies and caps and taxes and consequences. But what I am learning from Kimmerer and Macy, and also from Shirley and Cliff and Sonia here at UUCA, is that we may also need to put our hands in the dirt, to notice the flowers that are given to us, to love the earth and know that it loves us back, even now. To have our hearts broken and to keep on loving anyway. Perhaps this is the spiritual task of our time. An open awareness and awakeness to all that is broken in the world. A refusal to look away, to bury our heads in the sand. And even in that brokenness, to love and to be loved in return. This Earth Day, I hope you find a way to feel that sacred bond, our kinship with all that is. A kinship that asks us to love, to work, to plant trees, even when our hearts are broken. To know that we are loved, even then, in return.
Please join us in voice, in body and spirit, and rise and turn in your hymnal to 163 in the gray hymnal.
Please be seated. You know, UUCA is a place of great generosity, and one of the ways in which we express that generosity is that every week, 70% of what we give on the Sunday and through the week goes to an organization, a specific organization that works towards social justice. This month in April, the organization that we have partnered with and have partnered with for a long time is AFAC, the Arlington Food Assistance Center. UUCA has been connected with AFAC for more than 20 years. And so this isn't a one-off. This is our further expression of our commitment to this job of providing food with dignity to Arlington County residents who need that extra support. 1/3 of the people who receive food from AFAC are children. 12% of them are elders. And AFAC depends on our generosity. AFAC depends on donations, donations of food, donations of time, donations from the farmers market, donations of produce, and especially our generous donations of money, which allow AFAC to provide, to purchase, to find the food that matters to these people. 80% of the people who use AFAC come there every week. Every week. Can you imagine what it must be like, what it would be like to be someone who needed assistance with food every single week so that you could support your family in all the other ways that a family needs to be supported? And 90% of AFAC clients say that AFAC is very important to their lives. So we, again, from our relative place of privilege, are in a position to help support this. I stood one day at one of the donation site, not donation site, a distribution site, and watched the truck pull up with AFAC volunteers inside of it, unloading crates of eggs, gallons and bushels of food, milk, bananas, beans, and watched the people waiting for that food to be put out so that they could select what they needed that week. This is something that we can do. So I urge you, as the basket comes round or later in the week, you might use the QR code or go online to make a donation to UUCA for AFAC. 70% of what you give will go to AFAC. Please be generous. Ushers, please come forward.
Of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and for you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue, clouds of white, bright blessed days, dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, they also on the pieces of people passing by. I'll see friends shaking hands, saying how do you do. They're really saying I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll learn so much more than I'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world.
Ushers, please come forward. And congregation, you have either in your order of service or on your QR code order of service the words that we will say together to give thanks for these blessings. We bless and receive these gifts, opening our hearts to true generosity. Please join me. Let us be grateful when we give, be it time, talent, or treasure, for giving brings us joy. Let us be grateful for our needs and the experience of vulnerability, for they teach us how to receive in community and love. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts to nurture this congregation, for it is a blessing to make a difference together. Thank you.
It is indeed a blessing to make a difference together, a blessing to live in this world, broken as it is, a blessing to sink our feet or hands into the earth and to know it loves us back. I hope, friends, that this Earth Day you find those blessings and that together we remember we are, after all, just pilgrims on this, our blue boat home. I invite you now to rise in body or in spirit, to find in your teal hymnal its number. Something is in your program, I don't know, but you'll find it. 1064 in your teal hymnal. We're going to close with what some people call Unitarian Universalism's Freebird. Get your lighters out, folks, and let us, those of us in the sanctuary together, sing for our love of this earth that loves us back.